This is a Tracking the Tropics update with a certified most accurate weather team at First Coast News.
Welcome, everyone. We just got the 11 a.m. advisory on Tropical Storm Imelda. I'm meteorologist Lee Southwick, joined by meteorologist Mike Prangley. Mike, thank you for joining us. You've been watching this all morning. So what have you seen in the changes with this tropical storm as we've gone through these morning hours?
Well, first things first, the news started turning really good over the weekend. We started to see that turn that would happen a little sooner. It was a weaker system. And if there has been a change in the last 6 to 12 hours, it's really getting its act together.
Yes.
And the good news is, as it's getting its act together, it's getting ready to take a hard right out to sea. So that's the good news. So Imelda will become a hurricane, it looks like. But at this point, when it gets its act together, it'll be moving far from home. So we're, again, just looking for those coastal impacts.
Absolutely. It is strengthening. It now has winds of 60 miles an hour as of the 11 a.m. advisory, which, as you said, no surprise, it has been getting its act together this morning. So it's continuing to strengthen and organize over the Bahamas. You can see there Freeport really getting a lot of this. And then another thing I noticed with this new cone as of the 11 a.m. advisory, now expected to be a Cat 2 hurricane when it moves over Bermuda.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So we're going to have some concerns for our friends in Bermuda for sure. And what a tough tropical season it's been out toward Bermuda and the Atlantic. It's just been one storm after another. So again, we'll keep checking in on Bermuda. This is likely to become a Cat 1, it looks like, by first thing tomorrow morning. And as you were talking about, Lee, a Cat 2 as we head into Wednesday. Wow.
Yes. And now, for us here on the First Coast, no changes with this 11 o'clock advisory. The trend is still good. We are expecting it to turn to the east side. That's about 300 miles away from the First Coast. So staying away from us, strengthening into a Cat 1 on Tuesday, so tomorrow. That's also when it will be making its turn. But still, although Mike is staying far away from us, we are getting impacts here on the First Coast.
We certainly are. Oh, there we go. There's a nice shot outside, and that's what we really ran into this morning during Good Morning Jacksonville. We had one accident after another, and unfortunately it looks like these wet roadways on and off will continue, where you're actually nice and dry one minute and you get these squall bands of rain that really hit you pretty hard the next minute. And I guess, Lee, you went through that this morning, right?
And yes, I want to let everyone know it is not to be messed with. You have to go slow on the roads. These are very heavy tropical downpours, and that's why the man, the myth, the legend, our chief meteorologist Lewis Turner, updated our wording when it comes to our weather impact alert about using those caution on the road. Hey, Lou.
Hey, guys. Good morning. Mike, I got to spend a little time with your friends over at First Coast Living.
Yeah.
The top of the show was nice.
Okay.
It's nice. We'll do it again, in fact, at 11:30. For the last few days, we've been talking weather impact alert, essentially wanting folks intimately aware of the tropic, just checking in, like doing that. We've been talking since really Wednesday last week, like please twice a day, like come and check twice a day, get a good forecast twice a day because of so much uncertainty with this setup. And now we're kind of transitioning into, we can get some specifics with our weather impact alert now. It's primarily just use extra caution during that drive. Okay, so this will impact, obviously it's already impacted morning commute, and it's going to impact our times of evening commute today. Certainly could impact our outdoor plans tonight. We got sports practices and we got to think about the ball fields. They're going to be holding some water. So, check in with your coaches. They're going to be having to make that stressful decision kind of later in the day. Do we practice? Do we not? Do I call the mamas and daddies and let them know? So kind of one of those days, off and on.
I'll say just yesterday, we worked yesterday. You were also working yesterday too. And we saw all of that heavy rain coming down and already saw some ponding in some areas. And so I'm concerned about that rain falling again in that same spot over and over again today, maybe even into tomorrow. That could lead to that flood threat, although it is isolated and localized.
Yeah, so when we talk about our main severe risks today, and when we, there are certain specific categories that must be met to get a severe sort of severe thunderstorm warning, for instance, or a flash flood. And so I'm thinking more our risk today certainly could be on our radar. We start getting those boxes popping up illustrating areas of flash flood warnings. So we'll watch our usual suspects, the places, the low-lying areas, the places that we know we see it. So Fernandina, we actually will have a crew there downtown Fernandina watching for potential flooding, especially at times of high tide. So we're looking around 2 p.m. This afternoon. So Fernandina getting one of those bands even right now, maybe through the kind of plantation area on the southern end of Amelia Island, getting some of that heavier stuff right now as well. But going up towards Cumberland Island, the horses are getting wet, and even these are making it. No, that's fine. But they're making their way west too. And so while there is dry air trying to win the fight off to the west, this tropical moisture is sort of pushing its way out and making it even out towards Clay County. So we're watching that, Mike.
Yeah, and speaking of some of the high rain totals, you were talking about the ground being saturated in many areas. Lee was talking about it. We have specific rain totals around some of the areas down to street level. That's what our team does. We focus on the details, and they matter to us. And as we take a look, you can see some of the heavy showers now. But if we go to weather 2, we can look at some of those highest rainfall totals, and it's not going to take much more for some of that flooding you were talking about. So you go down just towards St. Johns County, just to the west of St. Augustine, the beautiful farmland, and the farmers down there reporting over 4 inches of rain now off Passetti Road. So that occurred overnight, and they had another heavy band this morning. Wouldn't be surprised to see another band or two come through. And then Roscoe Boulevard, we're familiar with that. Some good restaurants there off the 210 County Bridge. And Roscoe Boulevard up over almost 2.5 inches of rain. And there's been a lot of reports of low-line flooding, standing water, and that sort of thing there. So again, watching Roscoe Boulevard, Penman Road toward Jack's Beach, yeah, big puddles, and then some up nearly 2.5 inches of rain. And then Buccaneer Trail toward Big Talbot Island, as we pivot a little bit farther to the north, just about 2.25 inches rain, and then over to Moody Boulevard. We're also watching areas toward Palm Coast. So even though the highest totals we said all along would be probably centered I-95 to the east, we're seeing that right now, but just keep in mind even some rough travel, as Lou was talking about, for areas farther inland, because some of those showers have held together all the way to I-75. So it's about slowing down, taking your time. And of course, we have our weather apps here. You just have a free download, firstcoastnews.com, and you basically just zoom right into your neighborhood so you can get a good idea of where the rain is and where it's heading to keep you and your family safe.
So let's do that now, Lee. Let's come back to 1, and let's go back to the radar for a second, because I'm looking, at specifically kind of that Mandarin and northwest St. Johns County area.
And when you say what, I think if it's my computer, I'm on 3, just on all of the
weather 3, because there's some heavy rain. Yeah, there you go. So down towards southern Duval and Mandarin, and then Fruit Cove, pretty good shower now, and it's making its way right towards the St. Johns River. But that has the potential. I mean, you're talking about rainfall rates. When we say 2 inches per hour of a rainfall rate, that would obviously require the rain to be over you for an hour to get the 2 inches. But and then these are moving quick enough to where I'm not seeing that cell stand right over Mandarin, right over Fruit Cove for the next hour. But what's going to happen is they're just going to add up to your total. We're going to get another band a little bit later. That'll just add a little bit more. A lot of sports fields right there, Mills Field, right up Racetrack Road. You're getting that rain now. So that could impact you this evening as well. But pretty good showers. Like if you were going 95, you're streaming, and we appreciate it. But Lewis, I got to get out the door right now, and I got to get downtown right now. man, you're going to run into a blinding shower. So maybe give it 30 minutes if you can, and then coming into those downtown interchanges would be the best thing. Mike? Lee?
Yeah, in fact, we're talking about this evening. I think our heaviest band of rain is coming through right around lunchtime. We were thinking about that this morning. As you look at all the weather charts, so to speak, looking like we had most of the lift in the atmosphere heading around noon. And then, yes, we could have a few leftover showers for this evening, but if I was a coach, I love coaching soccer, and of course there's baseball games. You were talking about Mandarin, so if we go to Weather 2, we've got a forecast for Alberts Field as we go into your neighborhoods here, and you can see I'm talking about more of a light or a passing shower. So if we do have that biggest flood threat, it would probably be between our lunchtime and as we're driving home, and then things would start to slowly improve through the evening. And then tomorrow as Imelda pulls away, I think the news gets even better for at least the travelers on the roadways, right?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Lee, drive us. Where are you taking us next?
Well, I figured if we're talking about rain, let's take a look at the future radar. So
Okay.
over on Max 3 on our Weather Computer 3, we'll just kind of look through what's happening today. You know, this obviously is just one model run. It's not perfect. It hasn't shown as much rain as some areas have seen. But I think the takeaway here is that those bands, occasionally the heavy rain will continue to move on shore throughout the day today. So Mike already showed us some of those rainfall totals that are 2 to 4 inches in places. When we take a look at our rainfall totals just by the model, the story here is more those amounts will be isolated. It's not widespread. I don't want to forget about our friends in places like Waycross and Lake City, where we will not have nearly as much rain. A lot of that rain starts to calm down, lighten up as it moves inland. So scattered showers and downpours across the area today, but guys, not as much rain for those inland spots. Another thing too, I thought we could all discuss when we take a look at our expected rainfall totals over the next couple of days. Here, the story is, as we know, it's going to be more rainfall for coastal areas, but big picture too. We were just talking about places like the Carolinas, the drought that we have for places, more rain in South Florida too. So what all have you been seeing when it comes to the entire Southeast coast?
Yeah, it's a good point, because a lot of discussions, and you know, you have discussions with your colleagues across the Southeast, and meteorologists say Western North Carolina and Charlotte. You talk to them about their trepidation, their memories of Helene and all the rain they had, and of course the catastrophic flooding they had. And so these earlier forecasts had a lot of people, and rightfully so, extraordinarily nervous. If you think back to Helene, though, they had, the week before that storm, the mountains of North Carolina just got inundated with rain, tons. So with this particular situation, where they're going to get a quarter of an inch perhaps over the next 5 days, and front related, tropics related a little bit, they're in a pretty good drought, especially in the mountain side of things. So they hadn't had that rain lead up. So I think the Carolinas probably, they didn't want direct impacts from a tropical cyclone, but might be rooting for some rain. Same with us. You know, you get down towards west side, you get to Baker County, Columbia County, so we're talking McClenny to Lake City and beyond to Tallahassee, that's a pretty dry spot. And but despite what we're seeing today, which is kind of tough to wrap your brain around, God, we're getting this rain today, but you think about this whole month of September, it's been a top 5 driest September in our record keeping here in Jacksonville and around the area. So it's this time of year, it's the wet season, right, Lee? And we typically get good amounts of tropical moisture, we just haven't had it. So we definitely need this rain today. We don't need flash flooding.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Too much of a good thing in some spots.
It happens fast, doesn't it?
And of course, the rainfall totals are lower in places like Lake City, which could really be using that rain. But our beaches have seen most of that rain. And, speaking of our beaches, Mike, we've been watching the beaches closely. Lots of impacts for our coastal waters, rip currents, rough seas, maybe some minor tidal flooding. Mike, what were you watching this morning when it comes to our beaches?
The big thing we were seeing, we also had the live reports from the beach this morning, just getting that truth serum, so to speak, right on the ground. What did it look like? And the first thing that stuck out to me, hey, it's not looking too bad at this point, based on what we've seen. So we're not seeing anything that we haven't seen so far this season with Aaron and all those nor'easters. But the one thing that did stick out to me when we did the surf forecast, there is a high surf advisory. I think these are some of the highest breakers we've seen of this season. And when we're talking about 10 footers, if you go to Weather 2, I'll put it into motion. We're actually seeing the swell from not one, but two hurricanes to be. This Imelda will become a hurricane. So we're going to see those both push water toward the shore and really increase those wave heights. So notice as we head through late tonight and tomorrow, you see 5 to 6 feet off northeast Florida into southeast Georgia. And then we got that high surf advisory that could last all the way till Thursday based on those two systems really working in tandem. So as you look at the very latest here, we're watching those wave heights really come up to about 10 feet, especially peaking during the day, Tuesday afternoon before things slowly get better. There's the 9 foot. So that's the highest I've seen so far this season. And we've kind of been beat up with the beach erosion so far this season, those nor'easters and the fringe effects of tropical systems because it's been so active over the Atlantic so far.
And we've seen a good bit, unfortunately, too, with those systems to the flooding possibility at times of high tide. So if we do go back to Max 3, I got some of your high tide times too. And I know, Lou, you were looking at places like Fernandina Beach, sending some of our reporters over there to watch those high tide, because we've already seen flooding in Fernandina earlier this month, really, and we've seen some of these higher than normal high tides in St. Augustine, all those places too. Robert Speta will be in St. Johns County today, so we got people spread out, but there's a look at your high tides for today.
Yep, and it's timing is everything. So remember we had our king tide 3-4 weeks ago where we were seeing that steady, higher than normal astronomical tide plus the nor'easter. So communities like Fernandina, St. Simons, that gets good low-level flooding, but along the Julington Creek, even in Durbin Creeks, we were seeing those neighborhoods with it. Where we get a little more fortunate is what we're a couple of weeks away from our next full moon. So, you think, all right, that's a little better. But what's going to end up happening, even not kind of tropically induced over the next week, is we're welcoming back in another, and we're kind of getting used to it by now, but another kind of nor'easter situation,
yes,
which is going to lead to higher tides. So these coastal flood advisories we've been getting has been the theme of, August and September, late August into this month of September. So we're kind of getting prepared for it. Our high tide cycle for today, all our coastal communities between 2 and 4, and tomorrow, obviously very, very similar. So we'll watch the next week, we're going to need to be watching for those tides. Your forecast winds, as Mike really hit on nicely, I could see St. Augustine beaches through the evening hours getting those gusts to 30, 35, and that would be pretty robust. But a positive I take away from this, I'm not seeing the 40.
No.
And you know what? That's a good thing. That 40 is that magic number, Mike and Lee.
Yeah, we saw that over the weekend,
Yep.
when it was expected maybe to possibly come a little closer. We were seeing maybe gusts 40, 45. That was really
Yep.
the worst case scenario. And now things continue to improve, really mainly between 15 and 30 miles per hour. So, weather too showing the big picture. If you look at the big envelope of the storm where you see the storm scope, so to speak, the storm, the area of the storm with the highest winds and the big impacts is where you see the yellow on the screen. And notice we keep the yellow and the highest winds to our east, which is important. And then we watch Imelda really get its act together as a hurricane, at least a Category 2, it looks like, as we head into the middle of the week. But notice it's heading away, and notice our wind speeds will actually come down. I have the highest wind speeds really today, tonight, and as we go through tomorrow, have wind speeds more in the 10 to 20 mile per hour range, as you see there on the forecast winds. So we'll continue to watch the wind, but I think it's more, again, about the coastal impacts, okay? The dangerous seas and the surf and the rip currents for sure.
Yeah, and just occasionally some isolated localized flooding threats.
Exactly.
I want to have more of a philosophical conversation with you guys in the few minutes I have left with you before I run back out. But for First Coast Living, in the beginning, earlier in the infancy of this situation, we were seeing the modeling and the forecasting picking up on two big systems, and earlier in the forecasting showing that true Fujiwara effect happening, where this Umberto truly kind of rotates Imelda away. Then there was a period of time in the middle where modeling seemed to have a harder time with it, where we were seeing that cone essentially showing a landfall direct towards Charleston, and where we would have gotten some much worse impacts and flooding for the Carolinas and us as well. So there are some synoptic scenarios that modeling was picking up, and then we get what's happening in reality. And I think what you watch and you learn, and we got to remember, the modeling kind of in that middle portion was picking up on that strong ridge of high pressure, that Bermuda high, but also extending over into New England, which, in a vacuum, in its own existence, if Imelda was by itself, that blocking high could have very easily steered this system much further west. But we got to remember, as meteorologists and as the public, a massive Category 5 hurricane with deep low pressure is going to change the weather environment around it as well.
Yeah, nature takes its cues definitely from Category 4, 5s. They control the environment.
Correct.
We're always saying, oh, we got high pressure here. Oh, we got some lift here that's going to help things. But no, it was Umberto, our hero all along. I called him the king of the Atlantic this morning. The king. We took notice of Umberto, and so did Imelda, and it really kept that system from developing very quickly. It really slowed everything down. And of course, we had the trough and added to the shear. So Imelda's slow development, thanks to Umberto, I think really helped us out. Now Umberto still playing a big role, helping to weaken the ridge, helping to send Imelda out to sea even sooner, keeping our coastal impacts a little lower.
Yeah, I'm going to try to pull up Umberto's cone just so we can show everyone, too, what we've been looking at. If we go over to Max 3, please, let's talk about this cone. It is still a major Category 4 hurricane. It was a Cat 5. It still has winds of 145 miles an hour. That actually strengthened just a bit because it went down to 140 last night when I was working. Now back to 145. Mike, have you seen it strengthening this morning?
It looks pretty robust, yeah. So it's still something. I think what's interesting over the next few days, it would be Imelda then becoming the stronger hurricane as we watch a weakening Umberto as it moves over toward Bermuda. So that'll be something to watch as well. These two are still doing a little tropical tango, so to speak, out in the Atlantic. But yeah, Umberto, Imelda, and it does look like just, as we get ready for October, I'm hoping that this will settle the Atlantic down a little bit, okay, because it's been crazy out there. We could use a little break.
Honestly, of course, we're going to also watch the Gulf very closely, the Caribbean and the Gulf in the coming weeks. But for now, I love Umberto's path in between Bermuda and the U.S. Big hurricane, but staying away from land. As you mentioned, in the coming days, Imelda will likely strengthen. And now Imelda's cone,